Rananim, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cobb's Corner. If this is your first time listening, then welcome, and to my returning listeners, welcome back. On today's episode, we're going to be reviewing City Lights. City Lights is a 1931 comedy film written, directed, and starring Charlie Chaplin. This is the very first Charlie Chaplin movie that I have seen. It is the very first Charlie Chaplin movie that I am reviewing, and I assure you it will not be the last. It's the first Chaplin film on the American Film Institute's top 100 greatest movies of all time. So here we go. Introduction. With the aid of a wealthy, erratic tippler, a dewy-eyed tramp who has fallen in love with a sightless flower girl accumulates money to be able to help her medically. Storyline. A tramp falls in love with a beautiful blind girl. Her family is in financial trouble. The tramp's on and off friendship with a wealthy man allows him to be the girl's benefactor and suitor. This storyline is provided to us via IMDb by John J. McGee. That's M-A-G-E-E at helix.mgh.harvard.edu. Big shout out to John McGee. The movie is, as I said, it is directed by Charlie Chaplin and co-written by Charles Chaplin, Harry Carr, and Harry Crocker. It stars Charles Chaplin, Virginia Sherrill, and Florence Lee. Without any further ado, let's go to Cobb's Corner. So this movie came out in the year 1931, and it was a silent film. If you remember in our last episode when we reviewed Singin' in the Rain, we talked about how in 1927 there was a shift away from the silent era to the talking pictures, which were the new thing at the time. And Charlie Chaplin in 1931 made the conscious decision for his most iconic character to remain silent. And also brought up in my Singin' in the Rain review was the fact that silent films continued to be made for another 10 years after The Jazz Singer. 1927, the last silent picture was made in 1936. So, just a bit of context into the world in which this movie came out. 1931, silent films were still a thing at the time. And yeah, this movie has a lot of slapstick comedy, but it's very timeless. Like, I realized this movie came out over 90 years ago, like 92 years ago, coming up on 93 years. And, I mean, the movie was a smash hit when it first came out, and it's a smash hit even today, over 90 years later. And there's lots of, like, slapstick comedy, and, like I said, the comedy is very timeless. It's, like, very sort of like everyday things that people can kind of relate to even to this day. Like, that's the kind of trouble, that's the kind of like slapstick humor that Charlie Chaplin is kind of engaging in this film. And again, he stars as the tramp of the film, and it's funny, our introduction to him, there's some like statue being revealed, and then he's just lying down on the statue as they're like taking the covering off. And so then like the police are after him, and he walks around with like a hat, not a fedora, but I forget exactly what, I'm not sure exactly what that kind of hat is called, but it's a hat and a cane, and he's really just kind of like a quirky little guy who was always kind of like getting into mischief. And he one day finds a flower girl who's blind. He buys a flower off of her, and this blind girl who thinks that he's a millionaire, who mistakes him for a millionaire who I guess she used to see once upon a time. And so the two of them, they they spark up a friendship, and the tramp begins to develop feelings for this blind flower girl whose family is in financial turmoil. So one night, the tramp sees this millionaire who I guess is about to end his life. He's like tying a rope around his neck, and then the rope is attached to a rock, and then just as he's about to throw the rock into the water, then the tramp shows up, and then again they kind of get into their little bit of mischief, and the tramp accidentally ends up in the water, and then the millionaire has to go and save him, and then there's a lot of back and forth with like the millionaire accidentally being pulled into the water, and then the tramp being pulled into the water, and then them sort of going back and forth. So the millionaire befriends the tramp. They go back to his house and they have a few drinks, and now the millionaire can only remember the tramp when he is intoxicated. Yes, he only remembers the tramp when he's intoxicated, and they go to this party, and the tramp's causing all kinds of problems and all kinds of mischief. I think even in one scene, he accidentally like swallowed, like there's some sort of like birthday party he's at, and there's like a cake that's on a platter, and then like one of the waiters comes over to him with a cake that's on a platter, and then right next to him there's a bald guy who has like the same kind of platter design around his head, so he starts like to pretend to eat from the bald guy's head, thinking that it's the cake, and then the waiter comes back with the cake. He's like, no, I'm good. He then accidentally swallows a whistle, and then every time he talks, all you hear is the whistle. So yeah, we get some solid humor, but we also do get a solid like story. Really, this is a love story. The tramp, he sees an ad in the paper that there's now a cure for blindness out there in the world, and between him having this friendship with the millionaire, who is a drunkard, and this blind girl who is in need of financial assistance because her and grandmother have now officially, they owe $22 for rent, and the tramp feels obligated to help out the blind girl with the rent. So he then goes to the millionaire, and after a strange set of circumstances, he is able to get like $1,000 out. He's able to get $1,000 out of the millionaire, who, I guess, when the police arrive, the millionaire was sober. So he then forgets about the tramp, and he asks like, who is this guy? And then he kind of like storms off. So then the tramp storms off, and let's see, that was at the end. There's another part in the middle. I'm kind of like running through my favorite parts. I realize it's like out of order. Where, because the tramp felt for the blind flower girl and her situation, he went into town and found work. He got a job being a garbage man. I guess he would like go around town like picking up garbage on the street, but then he was always late to work. He was always late to work. So then one day he shows up to work and he gets fired by his boss, and right next to his workstation, we'll call it, there's a boxing gym, and he sees like an ad for boxing tonight, and then one of like the boxing managers says like, you want to make some easy money tonight, and he signs up for a boxing match. Signs up for the boxing match, and that night in the boxing match, pretty much the ref like stands between him and his opponent. Like he even asks his opponent like, maybe if we go easy on each other, then we'll split the purse 50-50. It's a $50 purse, winner takes all, but the tramp wants to split it 50-50, and to which his opponent disagrees, and the two of them, they start boxing, and it's really, really hilarious. Like, as soon as like they both go down, and then the ref starts counting for one of them, and then the other one gets, and the other one, or no, as soon as like one of them gets up, and then like they start counting for the other guy, and then once the tramp gets up, then the other guy goes down, and then the ref starts counting for his opponent. And so it's a lot of like back and forth and a lot of bell ringing. The tramp ends up with the rope wrapped around his neck, and then like the bell keeps on ringing. It's like, and the match has begun, and this round it begins, and 2 seconds later, and it's over, and nope, back again, and nope, and now it's over again. So yeah. Classic romance. Again, the tramp is trying to make enough money to help out the blind girl, and after losing that boxing match and going back to the millionaire that he's befriended, he is asked for $1,000. The millionaire agrees to help him. He asks for $1,000, and then the police show up. The millionaire forgets who this tramp person is. The tramp has to make an escape. He runs over to the blind girl's house, gives her the $1,000, and says, this is for both your rent and your eye treatment. So gives her the $1,000. It's a non-contractual $1,000, no fees or nothing. Says, here, do with it what you would like. And then the next day, he's in town, and he ends up arrested because the entire town, the entire city, they recognize him as the guy who was on the statue. They recognize him as the guy who's caused all this kind of like destruction and that sort of thing. So he's arrested on the spot. I mean, like the police were literally waiting for him, and yeah. He ends up in jail, and then ends up getting released from jail, I guess in the autumn, in the fall of, I don't know, maybe 1930. And he sees how, at that point, the flower girl has opened up her own shop. She's no longer blind, and she's doing well for herself. And then even as one of the businesses is sweeping out, and this is probably one of the greatest moments in cinema ever. He finds the same white flower that he bought from her when she was selling flowers on the corner back when she was blind. He finds it in the trash that a store owner has just swept out. Finds it. He goes over to her, and the two of them start talking again. He realizes, you're no longer blind, and now the two of them, they just started talking, and it's kind of the end of the story, but that's one of the greatest endings in all of cinema now, and it holds up all these years later. So almost a century later, yeah, it still holds up. So those are some of my favorite parts. On to themes and analysis.
I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm seeing. Take me for granted and you know I'm leaving. I'ma take what's mine with the webs I'm weaving. I could take this crowd from seeing to believing. Got a taste for blood in my tongue.
City Lights deals with the themes of love and of selflessness. Selflessness as well as generosity. I guess like love, generosity, and selflessness. Those are the three main themes of City Lights. Love in that it is a love story between the tramp and the blind flower girl. So there is that love that the two of them share. Selflessness because the tramp was not thinking of himself when he put the needs of the flower girl ahead of his own. Saw that she was in a bad situation financially, not just her, but her grandmother as well, and that there was this new cure for blindness that she couldn't afford. So, selflessness. He said, I'm going to put her ahead of myself and go out of my way to make sure that she doesn't get evicted and she's able to see. Which of course leads to generosity. Generosity being that, well, the millionaire was being generous in giving the tramp the $1,000 that he then gave to the blind flower girl, and that $1,000 that went towards paying the rent and to curing her blindness. So love, which led to selflessness, which led to generosity. And yes, it is a comedy. Yes, there's a lot of slapstick comedy, which is like almost frowned upon today. Today it's viewed as like lowbrow, but you look at guys like Chaplin and it's just so like timeless. And it's just so timeless, which is why I can't wait to get to the trivia portion. So timeless, with Charlie Chaplin and just him as an actor, as a comic actor, both in silent films and in sound. He's just such an icon in everything that he's been in. Well, I don't know if I can really say that. This is the first Chaplin movie that I've actually watched. I'm definitely for sure watching all of his other movies. And yeah, I mean, Chaplin's just so iconic in this movie. I don't think anyone's really done slapstick humor the way that he has. And 1931 was a different time. Slapstick humor was maybe considered highbrow. I feel like even to this day, we would consider the slapstick humor, slapstick comedy, to be, well, at least his slapstick humor, to be very timeless, to be very funny, to be very enjoyable to watch. So, I mean, highly recommend that you all check this movie. I know I say that about every single movie that I review, but check this movie out. There's something for everyone. It's for all ages. It's for all ages. It's fun for the whole family. Yeah, it's fun for the whole family. I guarantee you. On to City Lights Plus. So, as always, we'll be starting off our Plus segment with the awards. So, City Lights Plus, starting off with the awards. In 1931, City Lights won the NBR award. For my new listeners, the NBR is the National Board of Review. It won the NBR award for top 10 films. So, in 1931, it was in like the top 10 films, either the top 10 films either of that year or of all time, maybe of that year. And it also, in 1991, won the National Film Preservation Board, National Film Registry. It won the National Film Registry in 1991 with the National Film Preservation Board. So it is on the National Film Registry. The OFTAs, again, for the new listeners, Online Film and Television Association. In 2022, Charlie Chaplin won the OFTA Hall of Fame for his character as the tramp in City Lights. And in 2005, City Lights won the OFTA Film Hall of Fame for motion picture. So there were no Oscar nominations, there were no Oscar nominations, no Oscar wins, you know. So yeah, this movie didn't get a whole lot of recognition. Maybe it didn't get a whole lot of recognition at that time, you know, but yeah, this movie is regarded as a classic, for sure. Trivia. Sir Charles Chaplin invited Albert Einstein and his wife Elsa to join him at the Los Angeles premiere on January 30th, 1931. When the house lights came up, Chaplin was surprised to see Einstein's eyes tearing at the final scene. Chaplin said in his autobiography that he had not known Einstein to be so sentimental. I mean, Einstein was a man of science and, you know, a man of science, a man of logic, but yeah, who knew that Mr. Einstein had a soft side? I mean, to be honest, who wouldn't have teared up at the end of City Lights? I mean, it's one of the, like I said, it's one of the best, one of the greatest cinematic moments ever. Sir Charles Chaplin reshot the scene in which the little tramp buys a flower from the blind flower girl 342 times, as he could not find a satisfactory way of showing that she thought the mute tramp was wealthy. Okay, yeah, I think actually the BFI, the British Film Institute, they had a video where one of their film critics had reviewed City Lights and said something similar, like to that effect of having Charlie Chaplin reshoot the scene like 342 times, trying to get that one perfect take, you know, so that way the blind flower girl can get the sense that this mute tramp is actually wealthy, you know. That just shows the dedication that Mr. Chaplin had. Orson Welles. You guys will remember Orson Welles from our very first episode of this series, our very first episode of the AFI's Top 100. Orson Welles, who wrote, directed, and starred in Citizen Kane, which was #1 on the AFI's Top 100. Orson Welles himself said that this was his favorite movie of all time. I tell you, in retrospect, that is some high praise for Orson Welles himself to say that City Lights is his favorite movie of all time. And then the American Film Institute, they place his movie, Citizen Kane, as the greatest movie of all time, the greatest movie to ever be made. So, Orson Welles. All right, that's my high praise. Sir Charles Chaplin's first film made during the sound era. He faced extreme pressure to make the film as a talkie, but such was his popularity and power in Hollywood that he was able to complete and release the film as a silent, albeit with recorded music, at a time when the rest of American motion picture industry had converted to sound. Again, I kind of touched on this in the introduction, and also in the last episode when we talked about Singing in the Rain, the transition from silent films to sound. And, you know, Charles Chaplin, he demanded that this movie be silent film, and which might have seemed archaic even for 1931, but that just goes to show how popular Charlie Chaplin was. You know, he did a silent film at a time when there was an industry shift towards sound. You know, most American motion picture companies had converted to sound, but he said, nope, I want to stick with silent films, maybe just this one last time. So that's how determined he was. Sir Charles Chaplin's penchant for perfection carried over into all aspects of the production. He had a very clear vision as to how every scene should play. Robert Parrish, who had a small part as one of the newsboys who pelt the tramp with pea shooters, remembered in 1991, Chaplin was a dervish. He would blow a pea from the pea shooter, playing both my part and the part of Austin Jewell, the other newsboy. He then would run over and react as the tramp being hit by it, then back to the newsboys and blow another pea. He would then play Virginia Cheryl's part of the blind girl. Then he was the tramp. Then he would instruct what the background people should be doing. Everyone watched as he acted out all the parts for us. When he felt he had it all worked out, he reluctantly gets back our parts. I believe he would have much rather played them all himself if he could. Honestly, you know, Mr. Parrish, you know, Robert Parrish, you know, I'm pretty sure he would have much rather played all the roles himself and made it like a monologue. But yeah, I mean, that just shows. I mean, I would say that's hard work, dedication, and yes, a bit of him being a perfectionist. But in the end, you know, the movie came out so well. So yeah. On to some goofs. Continuity. At around an hour and 25 minutes during the film's final scene, the tramp is seen holding the flower to his face when seen from the front. When seen from the rear, he is holding it to his lapel. I think I picked up on that. Movie magic. At around 32 minutes, when the tramp takes the girl home, the birdcage outside the window is gone, but later reappears. So that's another lapse in continuity. At around an hour and 19 minutes, when handcuffed to go to jail, the tramp's left hand is cuffed, but when arriving at the jail, it is his right hand that is cuffed. Maybe they switched halfway through. You know, en route to the prison said, so we're going to switch. We're going to, you know, get your right hand cuffed instead of your left hand, you know. Kind of throw him off a bit. At around an hour and 13 minutes, when the tramp tries, to place a gun in the desktop table, the millionaire is lying back on the sofa. The next shot, he is sitting upright. Place a gun in the desktop table, lying back on the sofa, and yep, the next shot, he's sitting upright. Well, maybe he sat upright between shots. Maybe. And then at around an hour and 12 minutes, when the tramp and the millionaire are drinking champagne with the burglars in the house, I forgot to mention that the house is being burgled, the tramp places the glasses on the table behind them. When one of the burglars come up behind them, the glasses are gone. So maybe they took them away between takes. Incorrectly regarded as goofs. At around 39 minutes, when the tramp accidentally swallows the whistle, his real eyebrows are visible beneath his fake ones. This was done intentionally to give him a lopsided, intoxicated facial expression. Which makes sense. Yeah. It's not a goof. It's done intentionally. We're going to reveal some mistakes. At around 50 minutes, when the man swallows part of the tramp's soap and starts spraying bubbles, the tube used to spray the bubbles is clearly visible behind him. I definitely did not pick up on that. But yeah. Apparently the tube was clearly visible. In the famous fight scene, several spectators in the back rows of the gallery are motionless, either painted on a matte painting or cutouts or mannequins. In the shot of the tramp dreaming of the flower girl and the following shot with the trainers again kneeling around him, we see a particularly obvious mannequin or statue. A man in a light gray suit in the lower right corner of the screen. He also is visible in other scenes. I think I picked up on the mannequin during the dream scene where he's dreaming about the flower girl, but I didn't pick up on any of the other stuff. This is why I love IMDb, guys. You just reveal all the mistakes. Just thank you, IMDb. At around an hour and 9 minutes, when the tramp is knocked out on the table in the locker room, you see a pair of boxing gloves hooked in a post behind the table. The tramp wakes up and struggles to sit up. The entire scene, you can clearly see a wire attached to one of the gloves that, when triggered, falls on his head, knocking him out once again. Right, like the scene where he had like the gloves on the wrong hands. Yeah. Entire scene, you can clearly see a wire attached to one of the gloves. Wow. Hey, they did what they had to do. It was 1930s. Some of Charlie's curls are darker than the others, caused by Charlie Chaplin applying dark hair dye on his gray curls, a luxury a tramp like Charlie could hardly afford. Very, very true. Very, very true. I definitely got to check out like Modern Times and every other Chaplin movie that he's been in. The Great Dictator, all of them. The Circus. Crew or equipment visible. At around an hour and 5 minutes in the boxing match, when the tramp propels himself off the ropes twice at his opponent, you can clearly see the wire on his back. Wire on the back of his trunks. Yeah, I might have subtly picked up on that. All right. Now, although this is a silent film, this is the first silent film that we're reviewing here on Cobb's Corner. So this is actually like history. All right, we're reviewing a silent film. This is the first silent film that we are reviewing, and how perfect that our last episode was Singin' in the Rain, a like 1950s period piece about the 1920s and the transition to sound. You know, and then I had to skip to number 11 on the list, City Lights, because all the other movies 6 through 10 are based on books, and I want to read the book first. So, although it is a silent film, we do have some quotes still. The Tramp, you can see now. A blind girl. Yes, I can see now. The Tramp, be careful how you're driving. Eccentric millionaire. Am I driving? Question mark. Oh yeah, that scene's hilarious. It's like, am I driving? Like, who said I was driving? Yeah. You better hope. Man, I hope that I don't get into any cars with anybody and they just start swerving. Just be careful how you're driving, and then they just gonna ask, am I driving? Ooh, man, if I'm ever in a car with any of y'all listening, better be excellent drivers. Right? PSA to the Cobb's Corner fam. The Tramp. Tomorrow the birds will sing. That's from the scene where the millionaire decided to live instead of taking his own life. A blind girl. Thank you for your kindness, sir. Trying to remember that scene. Eccentric millionaire. James, the Rolls Royce will burn up the town. As he said in the scene before the party that they had. The first party that they had. Blind girl's grandmother. He must be wealthy. A blind girl. Yes, but he's more than that. He's more than just wealthy. She doesn't just want him for his money. Nice. Alternate versions. About 7 minutes of footage of Georgia Hale playing the Flower Girl exists and is included in the 2003 DVD release. The footage was shot during a brief period when the actress originally cast to play the character had been fired and replaced with Hale, but Charles Chaplin was forced to resume filming with the original actress due to the amount of film already shot. You see, filming was very, very expensive back then, and we already talked about how Charlie Chaplin was a perfectionist in his movies. And like, I guess this is what happens when you have one guy being both writer, director, and actor. You know, triple threat. 1989, Roy Export Company established Roy Export Company Establishment, shout out to the Roy Export Company Establishment, copyrighted a version with new opening credits and with Charles Chaplin's score musically directed by and conducted by Carl Davis. The original opening credit of Alfred Newman as the musical director was replaced by musical direction by Carl Davis. In addition, an end credits were added listing those filmmakers and companies involved in the new recording of Chaplin's score in 1988. All right, so nice. We're giving the artists some credit, giving the musicians that made the movie possible some credit, which is great. Credit where credit is due. Available prints feature the original credits, although references to United Artists have been removed. Even though he was uncredited in the original version, Jose Padilla's name was added to the credits. All right, Jose Padilla. Yeah, United Artists. I remember reading something about in the Rocky in the Rocky review that I did on Backlook Cinema podcast. They had talked about in IMDb on the trivia. They talked about Chaplin's involvement with United Artists, and so I don't remember seeing any credits after the movie. I think I watched the movie on Max. All the credits were at the start of the movie. So yeah. Connections. This movie was edited into an episode of History du Cinéma Fatale Beauté, probably Fatal Beauty. Shout out to my listeners in France. Vive la France, and bonjour to my listeners in France. History du Cinéma, probably cinema history. It was edited into that episode back in 1994. And then this movie was featured in a 1972 TV special, the 44th Annual Academy Awards. So, City Lights, it was featured in the 44th Annual Academy Awards. It was probably just like a snippet of it was shown. Yeah. And then some clips were shown on a 1983 episode of The Happiest Years, titled Unknown Chaplin. Happiest Years is probably looks like it was some sort of documentary or some sort of docu-series back in 1983, where we see some clips of City Lights. Makes sense? Unknown Chaplin. The episode was about Charles Chaplin. Some clips from this movie were featured in the 1985 short called Exit. Exit, which is a 1985 16-minute short. On July 12th, 3505, a research team explores remnants of humans' past and find themselves in a very unusual and strange place, a movie theater. Okay, so there's that. Also, a 1989 episode. The movie was footage of this movie is shown in a 1989 episode of History du Cinéma, Toutes les Histories. Stories. French-speaking listeners, feel free to translate in the comments below. And then in 1992, the movie Chaplin. Is it movie or documentary? Chaplin. Yes, an elderly Charlie Chaplin discusses his autobiography with his editor, recounting his amazing journey from his poverty-stricken childhood to worldwide success after the ingenious invention of the Little Tramp. Oh, no, this is an actual movie. Oh, right. Oh, with Robert Downey Jr. Okay. And Anthony Hopkins. Yeah. Several clips from City Lights made their way into this Charlie Chaplin biopic from 1992, which starred Robert Downey Jr. as Charles Chaplin. Can't wait to check that movie out and review it at some point. The movie has been referenced in Texas Carnival, 1951. The millionaire only recognizes a hero when he's drunk. like in City Lights. And the movie title is referenced in Howlings in Favor de Sade, also which is a movie from 1952. The character Isidro mentions this movie in Las Últimas Horas. Just gotta find the full title of that. Las Últimas Horas from 1966. It's a movie from 1966. To pour champagne into the violin player's pant in the Producers 1967 film called The Producers. They pour champagne into the violin player's pant, which is kind of a gag in the movie that I forgot to mention. There's a Turkish adaptation of this movie called Kafir Bey, which came out in 1970. Yes, Turkish adaptation. Kafir Bey, directed by Tunç Basaran. Yeah. The movie has been remade as En Büyük Saban, the 1984 Turkish remake. Shout out to my listeners in Turkey. The movie has been spoofed in The Dippy Diplomat, which was a 1945 short where Woody is sleeping on a statue similar to the Tramp. So that was clearly a spoof on City Lights in the 1945 short The Dippy Diplomat. The movie was spoofed in Forget-Me-Nots in 1969's The Comic. The comic, 1969's The Comic, spoofed City Lights in the Forget-Me-Nots. And the story of Dr. Zoidberg closely parallels the story of the Tramp and the Blind Girl from City Lights in a 2013 episode of Futurama called Stench and Stenchability. The soundtrack. The Flower Girls theme, uncredited, music by Jose Padilla, who we mentioned before in the alternate versions segment. Remember Jose Padilla, his name has been added to the credits in the years since, but in 1931 he was uncredited for the song, for the music, for the Flower Girl theme. He had the Star Spangled Banner, uncredited, music by John Stafford Smith. John Stafford Smith, is he the one who, composer, early musicologist. I guess he's the one who put together who composed America's National Anthem, Star Spangled Banner. How Dry I Am. It's a traditional song. Nobody's credited with that song in the movie. And Charles Chaplin is uncredited with the song Beautiful, Wonderful Eyes. Chaplin is also uncredited with Tomorrow, The Sun Will Shine, Happy Romance, Promenade, Oriental, and Oriental. All those songs are music by Charles Chaplin, 1931, uncredited. And then last song on the soundtrack is again from Jose Padilla, uncredited, La Violetera. User review. Amusing comedy sets up spectacular ending. Spectacular in all caps. This is my favorite Chaplin film, but I don't want to diminish his other work either. Modern Times was an outstanding work of social satire, The Gold Rush was great slapstick, and even the largely neglected Monsieur Verdot strikes a certain unforgettable tone. Chaplin didn't make a bad movie, and I'm not even sure that CL is his best, exactly. But it is my favorite, if only for the ending. That ending has been the subject of much comment here. I think it's a masterpiece in a single scene. Chaplin's little tramp has never seemed less like a character and more like a living, breathing human being. It's a monument to understated sentimentality. To me, the rest of the film exists largely to set the context for that one magnificent piece of celluloid. Yes, the boxing scene is great, and the scene where he rescues the millionaire is also wonderful, but it's that ending that makes us all love this movie. This review is given to us from Thunderbuck on IMDb on December 6th, 2004. So, thank you, Thunderbuck. I agree. Now, again, I haven't seen any of Chaplin's other movies yet, and so I can't even say for sure that this is his best film or that it's my favorite one. I mean, it's the only one that I've seen thus far. But after reading that review and realizing that, yes, the ending is the reason why we love this movie so much. That ending was phenomenal. It's one of the greatest movies, one of the greatest moments in cinema ever. That ending. And yeah, the entire movie is really just there to set up that splendid ending. Yeah. This movie has a 8.5 out of 10 rating on IMDb. I agree, 8.5 out of 10, that's solid rating. Letterboxd score, 4.3 out of 5, couldn't agree more. Official details. The movie was released on March 7th, 1931 in the United States. It is an American movie. Official sites, it has an Instagram, I guess. The movie was filmed in English. It is also known as City Lights, a comedy romance in pantomime. It's the full title. Filming locations, Chaplin Studios, 1416 North La Brea Avenue, Hollywood, Los Angeles, California. Production company, Charles Chaplin Productions. It had a estimated budget of $1.5 million, and it only grossed $19,181 in the US and Canada, and then only $9,102 its opening weekend, which is for some reason put as July 8th, 2007. That's probably the day that it was, the date that info was added to IMDb. Its gross worldwide, it only made $50,419, so it did not break even at the box office. It did not make a profit at the box office at all. It's probably why it didn't get a whole lot of praise initially, but we look back and it's a classic. Probably not an instant classic, though. Rotten Tomatoes. Critical score, 95%. Audience score, 96%. I'm kind of with the tomato score, 95%. And that's really high praise, because Rotten Tomatoes, they will seldom ever give a movie 100%. So, critics' consensus, one of the best underdog romance movies ever, with an ending that will light up any heart. Very, very true. Very, very true. Where can you watch City Lights? Watch City Lights with a subscription on Max, and you can rent or purchase this movie on Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV, and Vudu. That is all I've got for this episode of Cops Corner, for this review of City Lights. Thank you all for listening. If you like what you heard today, don't forget to give us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening from. If you got a movie or movie series that you want me to review next, then all you got to do is email me at copscornerpodcast@gmail.com. You could also hit me up on Instagram, TikTok, or Threads. All of those links are in the show notes below. If you made it to the end of this episode, I greatly appreciate it. Be sure to turn on those post notifications so that you get notified when I post, and tune in to Talk Time with Morgan Cobbs Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. Chuk Standard Time, live on YouTube, available everywhere else the next day. I hope that you enjoyed your stay here at Cobb's Corner, your one-stop shop for all things TV, film, and pop culture. As always, I'll talk to all of you in the next episode. Peace. One last thing before I end this episode. Be sure to tune in to our next episode, where we will be reviewing Star Wars. The focus of this podcast historically has been Marvel and Star Wars and DC, and really with the AFI series, and even with the Movies That Will Improve Your Life series that I did over the summer. not a single one of those movies that I reviewed over the summer, the movies that will improve your life, not a single one was a Marvel movie or a Star Wars movie, and I've taken a healthy break from that, but it's good to see that Star Wars A New Hope is number 12, or no, number 13 on the list. I'll be skipping The Searchers because, again, it is based on a book, so our next episode will be Star Wars 1977, so stay tuned for that. Talk to all of you in the next episode. Peace.